An understanding of the brain is critical because all stress is about the brain and it's about your perception of stress. Now, the key thing to understand about the brain, I'm just going to pull a few things out of this, is that the core motivation of everybody's brain here, twin motivations, minimize danger and maximize reward. And most of your behaviors come down to these two things. Now, the other important thing to notice is the timeline of events in the brain. You will have a non-conscious emotional response to something in your environment within 50 milliseconds. That's very quick. You do not have a thought or a feeling about that until 300 milliseconds. The key thing is that your emotional responses precede and influence your thoughts and your feelings. Now, self-regulation happens later on, seconds, minutes, hours. That's your ability to control your thoughts and your feelings. But a key driver, guys, is emotional responses. And with stress, stress is an emotional response. And there's an area of the brain I'm going to talk about in a minute called the amygdala, which is your threat monitoring system. And when it monitors a threat, it sends out a cascade to do with certain neurotransmitters that it can stimulate your cortex to have a thought about what you've just experienced in the environment, but it also stimulates your body through the autonomic nervous system, and then you get feedback from your viscera. You know that feeling if you nearly get knocked down or something dangerous happens, you can feel your stomach churning? Yeah, that feedback is what we call a feeling. And it's that self-regulation bit. But I just want to show you something on the power of self-regulation, because this is pretty cool. Has anybody heard of the zone? Put your hand up if you've heard of being in the zone. Yeah? So, a very aspirational state, made famous by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, but the zone is about when your brain is in what we call alpha state, and that is where your brain is optimal. That's where your just time kind of disappears and you just get stuff done and you're kicking goals and you're completely focused. Now, there's a few techniques for getting in the zone to induce alpha state. Classical music is a good one, but breathing is a really good one, and focused concentration. So what I want to do is combine all three of these. Now, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to pause this as we get in. So, we're going to play sort of 30 seconds. See these three little dots? Deliberately hard to see, yeah? Three little white dots, there, and there. When I start playing the music, I want you guys just to breathe nice and slowly through your stomach, nice and deeply, and I want you to just stir and focus completely 100% on the three little dots. Now, if you manage to get your brain in alpha state by doing this, which is what meditation does, you will, all the yellow just vanishes as soon as you hit alpha state, and it's really, really cool. Now, statistically speaking, about half the people in this room will get into alpha state, and it's pretty cool, and you can taunt the others who don't get into it. So off we go. So just take a breath, and let's just focus on those three little dots. Sorry, anybody stressed? Guys, it was nothing to do with alpha state. It was all about this, and I'll switch my Skype thing off in a minute, but you had a non-conscious emotional response. Who jumped? Who almost leapt out of their chair? Yeah, so we all had a non-conscious emotional response to two fearful stimuli. What were they? The sound and the sight, the scary face, yeah? Two very emotional stimuli for the brain. So your amygdala sends out, initiates a fight or flight response, so stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, and it actually will then stimulate the adrenal glands, the adrenal medulla, which will pump out adrenaline. So in those who got stressed, the adrenaline got pumped out, and what adrenaline does is it mobilizes you for fight or flight. So it makes your heart beat quicker, it makes the alveoli in your lungs dilate so they can take in more oxygen to fuel the muscles. It makes your liver dump blood sugar into your bloodstream to fuel the muscles. And all the blood that was in there digesting your morning snack got shunted to your muscles so that you could either fight or run away. And the pupils dilate to take in more information, and that happens within about 100 milliseconds. That's pretty cool, isn't it? That is a massively adaptive response to 3 minutes of screaming terror on the African savannah when you're being chased by a lion. And it is a beautiful response for that. Notice the people who raise their hands, you raise your hands up to here. A lot of people think they're protecting their face with fear. You're protecting your throat. Where the lions kill. Throat. So this is a learned, innate response that we have to fear. Now, what happens is there was a thought, which was probably an expletive, and a feeling of being afraid, and those thoughts quickly turned to, oh, haha, isn't the baldy man funny? And the feeling was one of relief. Now, the self-regulation part of it is the next video I play, you'll all be hyper-vigilant, just waiting for something to happen. Does that make sense? So guys, an understanding of this, I think, is pretty critical if we're to really understand and to master stress. So, as I said, deep in the brain, we have this area of the brain called the amygdala. You've got one in each hemisphere of the brain, and they are the threat monitoring systems. Now, when they get in control, that's when the wild horses are in control of your brain. They want you to fight somebody or to run away. And it's the frontal lobes that actually kick in to say, you know what, I know Justin's just stressed me out, but it's not a good career move to punch him, and it's not really appropriate to run off home in a workplace. So it's the frontal lobes that are the seat of rational thinking, and there's a tug of war. When you're stressed, there's a tug of war for control of your brain. And often the amygdala wins. That's when you do something, that's when you say something that you later regret when the amygdala kicks on. That's when things escalate. You know, they start off a little niggle with somebody and it turns into a full-blown argument, and you think, where the hell did that come from? That's because the amygdala, the wild horses, are in control. Now here's something pretty cool, found out by a neuroscientist called Antonio Damasio about 10 years ago. When the amygdala becomes stimulated, it will secrete chemicals that block your rational thoughts. It says, you know what, rational brain, talk to the hand, I'm in control. Those chemicals last for about a quarter of a second. That is generally what it needs to initiate a fight or flight response and get you the hell out of there. Now think of it. Back in historical times, you're walking through the jungle, something scrapes your leg, or you hear a rustle in the bushes. So the amygdala is screaming, lion, run away, and the frontal lobes might kick in and go, well, you know, it could just be a bit of wind, or it could be my friend playing a little joke on me. You're not going to survive very long if the frontal lobe has that conversation. Does that make sense? So with danger, the amygdala wants to initiate that cascade. The problem is, it's not lions anymore. It's deadlines, it's parking, it's relationships, yeah, it's financial worries, it's kids annoying you. It's all of these sorts of things that activate the same fight or flight response. And when that is chronically activated, that's when we have problems and health problems. So I'm going to give you some tools later on to feed the frontal lobes in this battle with the amygdala. Does that make sense? So that we can actually control stress on an acute level, but then I'm going to give you some other tools to master stress over a longer period of time.